Sofia Andrade stood in her sunlit studio, surrounded by a chaotic yet vibrant collection of unfinished canvases. The air was thick with the scent of oil paint and turpentine, mingling with the faint aroma of lavender from a small bouquet resting on the windowsill. Sunlight streamed through large, dusty windows, illuminating the dust motes that danced in the warm glow. Each canvas, adorned with splashes of color and unfinished strokes, told a story, her story. Today, however, her heart felt heavy, burdened not just by the weight of her pregnancy, but by the emotional turmoil that had engulfed her since Arthur's departure. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that YouTube can understand and deliver more of our content to you. Sofia paused, gazing at the swirl of blue and crimson taking shape on her canvas. She'd been painting feverishly for weeks, chasing an elusive sense of clarity. The vibrant strokes mirrored the storm within her, an intricate dance of anger, longing, and determination. She put down the brush and cradled her baby bump, feeling Grace's gentle kicks. A bittersweet smile crept across her lips. "You and I, Grace, we're going to be okay," she whispered. "We'll paint a new life for ourselves, no matter what." The sound of Clara's laughter floated in from the hallway, snapping Sofia out of her thoughts. Moments later, her best friend burst into the room, clutching a bright red folder. "You're not going to believe this," Clara said, her excitement radiating like sunlight. Sofia tilted her head, curious. "What is it?" "Lucas managed to secure you a solo exhibition," Clara exclaimed, her dark curls bouncing as she gestured emphatically. "This is huge, Sofia. A chance to showcase everything you've been working on. The gallery is expecting a collection that tells your story." Sofia froze, her breath catching. "A solo exhibition?" she murmured. The idea both thrilled and terrified her. "Clara, I don't know if I'm ready for that. What if it's not good enough?" Clara rolled her eyes dramatically. "Not good enough? Sofia, your art is raw, powerful. It speaks to people. This is your moment, and I'll be here to help every step of the way." Sofia exhaled slowly, the weight of doubt pressing on her chest. "Okay, I'll do it," she finally said, her voice soft but resolute. "But I'm not doing this alone." Clara grinned and hugged her tightly. "That's my girl. Now let's get to work." Across town, Arthur Morera stood in his father's opulent office, the leather-bound books and gleaming mahogany desk a sharp reminder of the family legacy that had always suffocated him. His father, Eduardo, sat across from him, peering over his glasses with his usual air of disapproval. "What's this I hear about you stepping back from the family business?" Eduardo's voice was calm but laced with warning. "We've built this empire for you, Arthur. You don't just walk away." Arthur clenched his jaw, his frustration barely contained. "I'm not walking away. I'm trying to fix my life. Do you even realize the damage we've caused? The pressure, the lies, the way I let it all ruin my relationship with Sofia?" Eduardo scoffed. "You're blaming us for your failings? You're a Morera, Arthur. That comes with responsibilities." Arthur stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the polished floor. "Being a Morera doesn't mean I have to lose myself. I won't let this family control me anymore." He paused, his voice softening. "I need to make things right with Sofia. I need to be there for my child." His father's cold gaze followed him as he left the room, but Arthur didn't look back. For the first time, he felt a sliver of freedom, though it came with the crushing weight of uncertainty. Would Sofia even want him back? Weeks later, the night of the exhibition arrived. Sofia stood at the entrance of the gallery, her heart pounding. Her canvases adorned the walls, each one a vivid representation of her journey through love, loss, and resilience. The space buzzed with excitement as guests admired her work, their voices a symphony of admiration and curiosity. Clara appeared by her side, beaming. "Look at this, Sofia. They love it. This is your moment." Sofia nodded, trying to absorb the scene, but her mind wandered. Would Arthur show up? And if he did, how would she react? As if summoned by her thoughts, the gallery doors swung open, and there he was. Arthur Morera stepped inside, his presence commanding attention. Sophia's breath hitched, her emotions surging in a chaotic wave. Anger, longing, and a fragile hope clashed within her. Clara noticed him too, her eyes narrowing. "Do you want me to handle this?" she whispered. "No," Sophia said, her voice steady. "I'll talk to him, but not here." Arthur approached cautiously, his expression a mixture of resolve and vulnerability. "Sophia," he began, his voice low. "Your work, it's incredible. You've always been amazing. But this, it's something else." "Thank you," Sophia replied curtly, keeping her emotions in check. "But this night isn't about us. It's about my art." Arthur nodded. "I understand. But please, can we talk later? I need to apologize. I need to explain." Sophia studied him for a moment, searching his eyes for sincerity. "We'll talk. After the show." Later that evening, after the gallery had emptied and the vibrant chatter had faded, Sophia found herself alone in her studio. Arthur arrived, his movements hesitant as he stepped inside. "Say what you came to say," Sophia said, her tone firm but not unkind. Arthur exhaled deeply. "I was a coward, Sophia. I let my family's expectations dictate my life, and I hurt you in the process. I've spent months facing that, trying to become the kind of man you and Grace deserve." Sophia folded her arms, her gaze unwavering. "And what makes you think I can trust you again?" "You don't have to trust me right away," he admitted. "But I'm here, and I'm willing to prove myself, no matter how long it takes. I want to be part of Grace's life, and if you'll let me, I want to be part of yours too." Sophia's heart ached at his words, but she refused to let her emotions cloud her judgment. "Arthur, rebuilding trust takes time. I've learned to stand on my own, for myself and for Grace. If you want to be in her life, you'll need to show me you mean it. Not just with words, but with actions." "I will," he promised, his voice steady. "I'll show you." In the weeks that followed, Arthur kept his word. He attended parenting classes, distanced himself from his family's toxic influence, and supported Sophia's growing career. He didn't push her for forgiveness, but instead let his actions speak for him. Sophia, in turn, focused on her art and her role as a mother. With Clara and Lucas by her side, she began to envision a future not defined by past betrayals, but by hope and resilience. And though the road ahead was uncertain, she knew she had the strength to navigate it. In the quiet of her studio, as she painted the final strokes of a new canvas, Sophia smiled. The colors swirled together, vibrant and alive, telling a story of pain, healing, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. Whatever the future held, she was ready to face it, on her terms. Arthur's transformation wasn't immediate, but it was steady and deliberate. He took Sophia's words to heart, understanding that rebuilding trust wasn't about grand gestures but consistent, meaningful actions. He began showing up, attending prenatal appointments, asking Sophia how she was feeling, and staying quietly in the background at her art-related events. Sophia didn't fully lower her guard, but she couldn't deny the sincerity in his efforts. One evening, as the autumn chill set in, Sophia found herself watching Arthur assemble the crib he had brought for Grace. He struggled with the instructions, muttering under his breath, and Sophia couldn't help but smirk. "You know, that part goes on the other side," she said, her voice carrying a hint of amusement. Arthur looked up, sheepish. "I was testing to see if you were paying attention." "Sure you were," Sophia replied, sitting down on the sofa to watch him. For a brief moment, the tension between them eased, replaced by a quiet familiarity. It reminded Sophia of the man she had fallen in love with before everything had fallen apart. Meanwhile, Clara and Lucas were instrumental in helping Sophia navigate her new reality. Clara, ever the pragmatist, ensured Sophia didn't get too swept up in Arthur's attempts at redemption. "He's trying, and that's great," Clara said one afternoon as they organized Sophia's studio. "But don't let your guard down too fast. You've built a life for yourself, and you don't owe him anything." Lucas, on the other hand, became a sounding board for Sophia's creative and emotional struggles. One evening, as they reviewed her upcoming portfolio for an art competition, Lucas leaned back in his chair and said, "You know, your work is changing. It's not just about pain anymore. It's about growth. Hope is magnetic. Sophia blushed at the compliment but nodded thoughtfully. It feels different. I feel different. Maybe that's a good thing. It is, Lucas said firmly. You've been through hell, but look at you now. You're rising. The months passed, and Grace was born on a crisp winter morning. The delivery was difficult, but when Sophia held her daughter for the first time, she felt an overwhelming wave of love and determination. Grace's tiny fingers wrapped around hers, and Sophia whispered, "We're in this together. My little one." Arthur was there too, standing quietly at the edge of the room, his eyes brimming with emotion. "She's perfect," he murmured. Sophia looked up at him, exhaustion and gratitude etched across her face. "She is." Though the moment was tender, Sophia kept her boundaries firm. Arthur was allowed to visit and help with Grace, but she made it clear that they were still navigating their relationship. "This is about her," Sophia reminded him. "We need to put her first." Arthur agreed wholeheartedly, throwing himself into fatherhood with a dedication that surprised even himself. He spent hours rocking Grace to sleep, changing diapers, and learning her little quirks. For Sophia, seeing Arthur as a father was both comforting and bittersweet. It reminded her of the man she had once believed he could be. As Grace grew, so did Sophia's confidence. Her artwork gained recognition beyond the gallery, earning her invitations to prestigious exhibitions and features in art publications. With Clara managing her growing career and Lucas helping refine her vision, Sophia began to see herself not just as a mother or a survivor, but as a thriving artist. One afternoon, Clara burst into Sophia's studio with a letter in hand. "You got accepted into the National Art Festival," she squealed. Sophia stared at her, stunned. "You're kidding? I never kid about these things." "Sophia, this is huge. This could be the turning point for your career." Sophia clutched the letter, her heart racing. The festival was a dream for any artist, a chance to showcase her work on a national stage. "I can't believe this is happening," she whispered. "You've earned it," Lucas said, stepping into the room with a warm smile. "This is your time, Sophia." The day of the festival arrived, and Sophia stood amidst her collection, the culmination of years of struggle, resilience, and growth. The walls of the gallery showcased her evolution, from the raw, emotional pieces of Heartbreak to the vibrant, hopeful works that celebrated healing and motherhood. The audience was captivated. Art critics praised her authenticity, while attendees marveled at the depth of emotion in her work. Clara and Lucas stood nearby, beaming with pride as they fielded questions about Sophia's journey. As the evening progressed, Sophia spotted Arthur entering the gallery, holding Grace in his arms. The sight made her heart flutter with a mix of emotions. He approached cautiously, his eyes scanning the room before landing on her. "Sophia," he began, his voice soft but steady. This is incredible. You've created something truly extraordinary." "Thank you," she replied, her tone warm but guarded. "It means a lot." Arthur shifted Grace in his arms, the little girl gurgling happily. "She loves the colors," he said with a smile. "She's mesmerized." Sophia couldn't help but smile too. "She's my inspiration." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. Finally, Arthur said, "I know I don't deserve it, but I hope one day we can find our way back to each other. For Grace's sake and for ours." Sophia studied him, her heart torn. She saw the sincerity in his eyes, the man who had grown and changed, but she also saw the strength she had found within herself. "Arthur, I don't know what the future holds," she said honestly, "but right now, I'm focused on Grace and my work. That's enough for me." Arthur nodded, accepting her words. "I understand, and I'll be here whatever you decide." As the festival wound down, Sophia stood before her final piece, a swirling masterpiece of colors that seemed to pulse with life. It was a celebration of pain transformed into beauty, of resilience and the promise of brighter days. She felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that no matter what lay ahead, she was ready. And as the applause filled the room, Sophia held Grace close, a smile spreading across her face. Her journey was far from over, but for the first time, she felt truly free. As the applause died down and the gallery began to empty, Sophia lingered near her final piece, cradling Grace in her arms. The vibrant swirl of colors on the canvas reflected the storm she had weathered and the calm she now felt stirring within her. She traced the curves of the brushstrokes in her mind, remembering the sleepless nights spent pouring her soul onto that canvas, a tribute to her journey. Clara approached, her face glowing with pride. "You did it, Sophia. Tonight was magical." Sophia smiled, feeling the weight of accomplishment settle over her. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said sincerely. "You've been my rock through all of this." Clara waved a dismissive hand, though her eyes gleamed with emotion. "Oh, stop it. You're the one with the talent. I just gave you a little push." Lucas joined them, carrying a glass of sparkling water for Sophia. "A little push? Clara practically shoved you into this world," he teased, earning a playful jab in the arm from Clara. Sophia chuckled, her gratitude for her friends swelling in her chest. "I'm lucky to have both of you." As they shared a quiet moment, Sophia glanced across the room and noticed Arthur standing alone, his gaze fixed on her final piece. He looked contemplative, as if trying to decipher the story behind the vibrant hues. Grace cooed softly in her arms, and Sophia's heart twisted at the sight of him. He wasn't the man she had first fallen in love with, nor was he the man who had broken her heart. He was something in between, a man still trying to find his place in her life. "I should go talk to him," Sophia said, glancing at Clara and Lucas. Clara raised an eyebrow but said nothing, her expression a mixture of caution and encouragement. Lucas gave her a small nod. "Do what feels right," he said simply. Sophia walked over, Grace snug in her arms. Arthur turned when he saw her, his expression softening as he caught sight of their daughter. "She's so beautiful," he said, his voice tinged with awe. "She is," Sophia agreed, adjusting Grace's tiny blanket. "She's my everything." Arthur hesitated, as though searching for the right words. "Your work tonight, it's incredible, Sophia. I saw so much of you in every piece. The strength, the vulnerability. It's all there." "Thank you," Sophia said, her tone measured. "It wasn't easy to get here." "I know," Arthur replied, "and I know I'm part of why it was so hard." He paused, taking a breath. "I can't change what I did, but I hope I can be a better man going forward. For Grace and for you, if you'll let me." Sophia studied him, searching his face for any sign of pretense. She saw none, just the quiet sincerity of someone who had faced his mistakes and was ready to take responsibility. "Arthur," she began, her voice steady, "I appreciate what you're trying to do, but trust isn't something I can just hand over. You'll have to earn it." "I know," he said earnestly. "I'm not asking for anything overnight. I'll take whatever time you need." "Good," Sophia said, nodding, "because my focus right now is Grace and my art. I've worked too hard to let anything derail me again." Arthur nodded, his gaze dropping to Grace. "She's lucky to have you as her mom," he said softly, "and I'll do whatever I can to be the father she deserves." Sophia felt a flicker of something she hadn't expected, hope. It was tentative, fragile, but it was there. She didn't know what the future held for her and Arthur, but for the first time, she was willing to consider the possibility of a future where forgiveness and growth could coexist. The following weeks were a delicate dance of rebuilding. Arthur kept his promises, showing up for Grace in every way he could. He attended her doctor's appointments, helped with late-night feedings, and even lent a hand when Sophia needed time to paint. His actions spoke louder than any words he could have offered, and slowly, Sophia began to see the man she had once believed in resurface. Meanwhile, Sophia's career flourished. The success of the national festival brought opportunities she had only dreamed of, invites to collaborate with renowned artists, interviews with prominent magazines, and even a potential international exhibition. Clara and Lucas worked tirelessly to ensure she seized each opportunity while keeping her grounded. One evening, as Sophia stood in her studio, lost in the intricate details of her latest work, Clara arrived with a bottle of wine and an envelope. "Special delivery," Clara announced, waving the envelope. Sophia wiped her hands on her apron and took it. "What's this?" "Open it and find out," Clara said, grinning. Sophia tore it open and gasped. It was an invitation to exhibit her work at a prestigious gallery in Paris. "Clara, I don't even have words." "I do," Clara said, raising her glass. "Paris, international acclaim. The world is your oyster, Sophia." As Sophia stared at the invitation, her mind raced with possibilities. Paris would be a dream come true, but it would also mean uprooting the life she had just begun to stabilize. And what about Grace? And Arthur? "I need to think about this," she said finally, her voice thoughtful. "Take your time," Clara said. "But remember, you've earned this." That night, Sophia found herself sitting on her balcony, Grace asleep in her arms. Arthur arrived, as he often did, to check in on them. When he saw her contemplative expression, he asked, "What's on your mind?" Sophia hesitated before showing him the invitation. "I've been invited to Paris to exhibit my work." Arthur's eyes widened. "Sophia, that's incredible. You have to do it. But what about Grace? What about everything I've built here?" Arthur crouched beside her, his gaze steady. "We'll figure it out. You've worked too hard for this. I'll support whatever you decide." Sophia searched his face, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. "You've changed," she said softly. Arthur nodded. "Because I finally realized what matters." Sophia leaned back, cradling Grace close. The road ahead was still uncertain, but one thing was clear. She was no longer the woman who had been shattered by Arthur's departure. She was stronger, more resilient, and ready to face whatever came next, whether it was in Paris or right there at home. For the first time in years, Sophia felt truly free. Free to dream, to love, and to create. Whatever the future held, she knew she would meet it head-on, with Grace by her side and her heart wide open. Over the next few weeks, Sophia carefully considered the Paris opportunity. Every decision she made now had to account for Grace's well-being, her growing career, and the fragile dynamics with Arthur. Though Arthur never pressured her, he continued to show unwavering support, taking on responsibilities that made her feel, for the first time, like she didn't have to shoulder everything alone. One evening, as Sophia sat at her kitchen table reviewing travel logistics and gallery contracts, Clara and Lucas joined her for dinner. They were her sounding boards, offering insights and encouragement. "You've done so much for your career here," Lucas said, pouring himself a glass of water. "But Paris isn't just an opportunity, it's a gateway. You'd be establishing yourself on an international stage." Clara nodded in agreement. "And let's be honest, Grace is still young enough that the transition wouldn't be too disruptive. Plus, I've always dreamed of visiting you in Paris," she teased. Sophia smiled, but her mind was still tangled with doubts. "It's not just about logistics," she admitted. "It's about everything. My life has started to feel stable again. Grace, the gallery, Arthur stepping up. Am I ready to risk all of that for a dream?" Clara leaned forward, placing a hand on Sophia's arm. "You've built that stability, Sophia. You've fought for it. Paris won't erase that. It'll build on it." And as for Arthur, she hesitated, glancing at Lucas. Lucas picked up the thread. "I think you should talk to him. Ask him how he feels about you going. Not to make your decision for you, but because it seems like he wants to be part of whatever's next." Sophia exhaled slowly. "You're right. I need to know where he stands." Later that night, Sophia invited Arthur over. He arrived quickly, his concern evident as he stepped into the apartment. "What's going on?" he asked, noticing the serious expression on her face. Sophia gestured for him to sit. Grace was asleep in her crib, and the apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. "I've been thinking a lot about Paris," she began, folding her hands on the table. "It's a huge opportunity, but it's also a big decision. I need to know how you feel about it." Arthur's brow furrowed as he processed her words. "How I feel," he echoed. "Sophia, this is your dream. You've worked so hard to get here. I wouldn't want to stand in your way." "It's not about standing in my way," Sophia said gently. "It's about what happens if I go. What does that mean for Grace? For us? I need to know if you're ready to be part of this." really be part of it, or if I'm doing this alone. Arthur leaned forward, his expression earnest. Sophia, I want to be part of it. All of it. Grace is my daughter, and I'll support whatever you decide. If that means figuring out how to co-parent from different countries, I'll do it. If that means going with you to Paris, I'll make it work. I'm not the same man who ran away. I'm here. Sophia felt her chest tighten. His words were genuine, but the wounds from his past betrayal lingered. Arthur, this isn't just about words. It's about consistency. Grace needs stability, and so do I. Arthur nodded. I know, and I'll prove it to you. Not just for Grace, but because I want to be the kind of man you can trust again. Whether you go to Paris or stay here, I'm with you. The next morning, Sophia sat by the window, sipping her coffee as Grace babbled happily in her playpen. The light streaming through the curtains reminded her of the countless mornings she had spent in her studio, searching for clarity in the chaos of her life. Now, the choice before her wasn't just about her career. It was about the life she wanted to build for herself and her daughter. By the time Clara and Lucas arrived later that day, Sophia had made her decision. I'm going to Paris, she announced, her voice steady and sure. Clara clapped her hands together in delight. I knew you'd do it. Oh, Sophia, this is going to be amazing. Lucas grinned. The art world isn't ready for you. Sophia smiled but raised a hand to temper their excitement. But I'm not going alone. Arthur wants to be involved, and I'm giving him that chance. He'll join us. If he can prove he's serious about being part of Grace's life. Clara's eyebrows shot up. Wow, that's a big step. It is, Sophia admitted. But I want to give him the opportunity to show me he's changed. If he's willing to do the work, I'm willing to see where it leads. Lucas nodded thoughtfully. You're giving him the chance to step up, but you're also protecting yourself and Grace. That's a good balance. In the weeks that followed, Sophia worked tirelessly to prepare for the move. Arthur kept his promise, helping with logistics and ensuring Grace had everything she needed. He even started learning French, a gesture that warmed Sophia's heart more than she cared to admit. The day of their departure arrived quickly. At the airport, as Sophia stood with Grace in her arms, she felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Arthur, carrying their luggage, stepped beside her. Are you ready for this? He asked, his tone light but his eyes serious. Sophia glanced down at Grace, then up at Arthur. I don't know if anyone's ever truly ready, she said, but I know it's the right thing to do. Arthur nodded, his expression resolute. Then let's make it work. For Grace, for us. As they boarded the plane, Sophia felt the weight of the past lift slightly from her shoulders. She didn't know what the future held, whether Arthur would truly redeem himself, whether Paris would be everything she hoped for, but she knew she was heading towards something new, something full of possibility. And as the plane took off, carrying them toward their next chapter, Sophia looked out the window, Grace nestled against her chest. She whispered softly, "This is just the beginning." The horizon stretched endlessly before her, a canvas waiting to be filled with the colors of her next journey. For the first time in a long time, Sophia felt at peace, ready to embrace whatever came next. As the plane touched down in Paris, a mixture of exhilaration and nerves coursed through Sophia. She looked out the window at the sprawling city below, a patchwork of historic rooftops and modern structures basking in the morning light. Paris, the city of art and dreams, was now her new beginning. Arthur, seated beside her, glanced her way. "Welcome to Paris," he said with a tentative smile, his tone lighter than she had expected. Grace, cradled in his arms, stirred awake, her little face scrunching before breaking into a wide, innocent smile. The sight melted Sophia's tension, if only for a moment. As they stepped into the bustling terminal, Sophia felt the enormity of the decision settle over her. Clara had flown ahead to help set up the apartment Lucas had arranged through his connections in the Parisian art community. Sophia knew she wasn't alone, but the leap into a new life still felt daunting. Their apartment was nestled in Montmartre, the heart of the artistic district, with its cobblestone streets and bohemian charm. The space was modest but brimming with character. Large windows let in streams of natural light, and the faint scent of fresh baguettes wafted in from a nearby bakery. The walls were blank, a perfect canvas for her to transform. Clara greeted them at the door, her arms full of groceries and a bottle of wine tucked under one arm. "You made it!" she exclaimed, ushering them inside. "I've got wine, bread, and enough cheese to make a Parisian cry tears of joy." Sophia laughed, her shoulders easing as she took in the warmth of the space. "It's perfect," she said, glancing around. She placed Grace in her bassinet by the window, the baby already fascinated by the play of light filtering through the lace curtains. Arthur carried the luggage inside, his movements purposeful but understated. He gave Sophia space, sensing her need to acclimate without too much interference. "I'll unpack the essentials," he offered, leaving her and Clara to catch up. As Clara opened the wine, she leaned closer to Sophia. "So, how are you feeling? New city, new chapter, Arthur." "It's a lot," Sophia sighed, swirling the glass of wine Clara handed her. "It is, but I think this is where I need to be. For Grace, for my career." And as for Arthur, she trailed off, her gaze drifting to where he was quietly setting up Grace's crib. "I don't know. He's trying, and that means something. But it doesn't erase the past." Clara nodded. "It doesn't, but you're calling the shots now. He knows that, and as long as you're clear about your boundaries, this could work. Or not. Either way, you've got me and Lucas." "Thank you," Sophia said softly. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Sophia's integration into the Parisian art scene was as thrilling as it was overwhelming. Lucas's connections had landed her a coveted spot in an upcoming exhibition at a prominent gallery. The theme, Renaissance, felt serendipitous, a perfect encapsulation of her journey. As she spent hours in her new studio preparing pieces for the show, Arthur became an indispensable presence in Grace's life. He explored the city with their daughter, taking her to parks and markets, immersing himself in the routine of fatherhood. Each evening, he would share stories of their day, his excitement over Grace's milestones as genuine as his love for her. One night, as Sophia worked late in her studio, Arthur arrived with a sleeping Grace in his arms. He placed her gently in her crib, then stood awkwardly near the doorway, as if unsure whether to stay or leave. "Arthur," Sophia said, breaking the silence. "You don't have to hover in the shadows. Come in." He stepped inside, his gaze sweeping over the vibrant works in progress on the walls. "You've been busy," he said, admiration evident in his tone. "I have to be," Sophia replied. "This exhibition is important." Arthur hesitated before speaking. "I want you to know that whatever happens with us, I'm proud of you. You've built something incredible, and I'm grateful just to witness it." Sophia paused, the sincerity in his voice catching her off guard. "Thank you," she said quietly, her heart softening despite her lingering doubts. "I appreciate that." They fell into a comfortable silence, the hum of the city filtering through the open window. For the first time, Sophia felt that maybe they could find a way to coexist. Not as the broken couple they once were, but as two people rebuilding from the ground up. The night of the exhibition arrived, and the gallery was alive with energy. Sophia stood near her collection, her heart racing as guests wandered through, murmuring their admiration. The pieces were deeply personal, vivid explorations of pain, healing, and hope. One canvas, a swirling blend of soft pinks and deep blues, seemed to draw the most attention. It depicted a woman standing at a threshold, her hand on a door ajar, light streaming through. The title, Becoming. Lucas appeared at her side, his smile wide. "They're loving it," he said, handing her a flute of champagne. "You're the star of the night." Sophia smiled nervously. "I can't believe this is real." Clara joined them, beaming. "Believe it, sweetheart. You've earned this." Arthur stood on the periphery, holding Grace, his expression a mix of pride and longing. As guests approached him, marveling at his dedication to their daughter, he deflected attention back to Sophia, insisting she was the real star. At the end of the evening, the gallery director approached Sophia with a proposition, an offer to represent her on a more permanent basis. It was everything she had dreamed of, yet she hesitated, her mind spinning with the implications. That night, as Sophia and Arthur returned to their apartment. The weight of the evening settled over her. Grace was asleep, and the quiet offered a rare moment of introspection. Arthur sat across from her at the small kitchen table, his expression thoughtful. "Tonight was incredible," he said. "You were incredible." Sophia nodded, her voice soft. "It was, but it's also overwhelming. This offer could mean everything for my career, but, Arthur prompted gently, "but it means more time away, more travel. I don't know how to balance it all. Grace, the work, everything else." Arthur leaned forward, his gaze steady. "You don't have to do it alone, Sophia. I'm here. Whatever you need, I'll support you. I'll make it work." Sophia studied him, her heart full of conflicting emotions. For the first time, she saw not just a man trying to make amends, but someone willing to stand beside her as an equal. It didn't erase the past, but it offered a glimmer of something she thought she had lost: trust. "We'll see," she said finally, her voice tentative but hopeful. "One step at a time." Arthur smiled, his relief palpable. "That's all I ask." As Sophia lay awake that night, Grace nestled beside her. She thought about the path ahead. The road was still uncertain, but she felt stronger than she ever had. Whether her story with Arthur would continue or take a new shape, one thing was clear: she was in control of her destiny. Paris wasn't just a new beginning. It was a canvas waiting to be filled with all the vibrant, unpredictable colors of her life. And for the first time, she felt ready to embrace every stroke. As the days passed in Paris, Sophia settled into a rhythm. Her work flourished, and the buzz from her exhibition slowly turned into a steady stream of opportunities. The gallery director had kept her promise, introducing her to collectors, curators, and artists who respected her unique voice. Her work, born from pain, had resonated deeply with people from all walks of life. It was more than art. It was a reflection of resilience, and Sophia's reputation as a rising star in the Parisian art scene was growing every day. Arthur, too, had settled into the new life they were building together. He spent his days taking care of Grace, attending parenting classes, and even helping to translate for Sophia at meetings. The work he put into fatherhood didn't go unnoticed, and as Sophia watched him with Grace, she saw a side of him that had long been buried: gentle, committed, and full of love. But there were still moments of hesitation, moments when the past would surface, and she would wonder whether it was all enough. One rainy afternoon, after a long day in the studio, Sophia returned to the apartment to find Arthur and Grace waiting for her, the baby giggling as Arthur made silly faces to keep her entertained. Sophia watched them for a moment, her heart swelling at the sight, but also feeling a pang of uncertainty. She had built this life carefully, brick by brick. Was she ready to share it fully? Could she allow herself to truly believe that the past was behind them? Arthur looked up as Sophia entered, his face lighting up. "Hey, there she is," he said warmly. "I thought we'd give you a surprise. Grace and I tried our hand at making dinner, but I think we might have accidentally made cereal." "Sorry about that." Sophia chuckled, her unease melting slightly. "Cereal is fine," she said, crossing the room to kiss Grace on the forehead. "You're doing great, Daddy." Arthur smiled, his expression soft. "I'm trying. I know I have a lot to prove, but I'm here, Sophia. I'm really here this time." She looked at him, a rush of conflicting emotions rising within her. "I know," she whispered, her voice uncertain. "You've been amazing, but sometimes I don't know if I'm ready. Ready to let go of the past. Ready to trust again." Arthur walked over to her, his presence steady and reassuring. "I'm not asking for you to forget the past, Sophia. I know I hurt you, but I'm showing up now, every single day, for you and for Grace. And if that's not enough, then I understand. But I'm not going anywhere." Sophia swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his words. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she couldn't keep living in the shadows of what had been. It wasn't just about her art or even her career. It was about creating a space where she could finally feel at peace with her choices. After a long silence, she nodded. "I'm not ready to rush into anything," she said slowly, meeting his gaze. "But I'm willing to try, to see where this goes." Arthur smiled, a flicker of hope in his eyes. That's all I need. One day at a time, the weeks that followed were filled with both triumph and doubt. Sophia's art gained more recognition, and she was offered a permanent studio in the heart of Paris, a sign of her growing success. She was invited to collaborate with other artists, and the prospect of international exhibitions soon loomed on the horizon. Yet despite her professional success, the internal struggle of balancing her personal life with her career remained a constant challenge. Arthur remained an unwavering presence in Grace's life, taking on more responsibility and learning how to co-parent with Sophia in a way that allowed her to pursue her dreams while still feeling secure in their little family unit. Yet, in the quiet moments, when Sophia was alone with her thoughts, she questioned if she was giving enough to him, whether her heart had fully healed from the past. She couldn't shake the fear that the same mistakes could repeat themselves. One evening, after an exhausting day of meetings and work, Sophia found herself in her studio, paintbrush in hand, but her mind elsewhere. The pressure to keep moving forward, to keep proving herself, was suffocating. She needed to talk to someone who could understand the complexities of her situation. Clara had become her anchor throughout this journey, the person who kept her grounded when the uncertainty felt overwhelming. Sophia called her, and after a few rings, Clara picked up. "Hey, how's my favorite artist?" Clara asked, her voice light. "I don't know, Clara," Sophia replied, rubbing her temples. "I feel like I'm drowning in all of this. The art, the shows, the new life, and Arthur. I keep wondering if I'm making the right choices." Clara's voice softened. "You are. You're making the choices that feel right for you. Look, I know it's hard, and I know you're scared of repeating the past. But think about where you were a year ago. You've come so far. You're stronger than you realize." Sophia sighed, pacing the room. "I just don't know if I can keep juggling everything. I want to trust Arthur. I want to believe that he's really changed. But there's always this part of me that holds back. And I'm afraid. I'm afraid of letting him back in, of letting myself get hurt again." Clara paused before speaking, her words thoughtful. "Sophia, you're not the same person you were before, and neither is he. You don't have to decide everything right now. Just take it one step at a time. You've got this. You've got him, you've got Grace, and you've got me." Sophia smiled softly at Clara's reassurance. "Thank you. I needed to hear that." "Anytime," Clara replied. "Now get some sleep. Tomorrow is another day to make those big decisions. You don't have to make them all tonight." The next morning, Sophia woke with a clearer mind. The weight of her decisions didn't disappear, but she knew she was ready to face them, one by one. When she walked into the living room, Arthur was sitting on the couch. Grace nestled in his lap as they flipped through a photo album. Sophia stood in the doorway, watching them for a moment before walking over. Arthur looked up, his expression soft and open. "I've been thinking," Sophia began, her voice steady. "About us. About everything. I'm still scared. And I still don't know what the future holds. But I'm willing to see where we can go together. I don't want to live in the past anymore. But I can't pretend I'm not still healing." Arthur set the album aside, his eyes filled with understanding. "I don't expect you to have it all figured out. But I'll be here. For you, for Grace, and for whatever comes next. I'll be here, Sophia." For the first time in a long while, Sophia felt a sense of peace. Not all the pieces of her life were in place, but she had learned that sometimes the journey was just as important as the destination. And with every brushstroke of her art, with every step she took with Arthur, she knew she was building a future, piece by piece. As the months passed, Sophia continued to grow as an artist, her reputation reaching new heights. But more importantly, she learned to trust herself again. Trust that she had the strength to navigate the uncertainties ahead, and that, no matter the challenges, she was not alone. One crisp autumn afternoon, as Sophia sat in her Parisian studio, Grace playing at her feet, and Arthur quietly working nearby, she realized that while the future was still uncertain, she had everything she needed to face it: her art, her family, and the courage to embrace the unknown. And for the first time in a long time, Sophia felt truly at home in her own life, knowing that, whatever came next, she would be ready. The afternoon sun gently filtered through the window, illuminating the canvases Sophia had created with so much love and dedication. She looked at her daughter, who played with her tiny hands, and at Arthur, who sat beside her, reading a book. The tranquility of that moment seemed far removed from the woman who, not long ago, had battled the shadows of her past. But there, in the heart of Paris, with the weight of so many struggles already faced, she felt that she had finally found her balance. Sophia slowly rose and approached her last painting, a piece that reflected not only her journey of pain and overcoming, but also the birth of something new within her. Renaissance was the title, and in that moment, she knew it was not just a work of art. It was her own story being rewritten every day. Arthur stood up and walked over to her, looking at the canvas. "It's beautiful, Sophia. It's like you. Strong and full of light, despite everything you've been through." She smiled, a genuine smile full of gratitude. "Yes, it's been a long and difficult path, but it's my path. And now, with Grace with you, I feel ready for whatever comes next." Arthur looked her in the eyes, his expression reflecting not only hope, but also the sincerity of someone who had learned from their own mistakes. "I'm here, Sophia. I'll always be here." Sophia didn't know what the future held for them, but she knew she was stronger, freer, and more aware of her choices. She had rebuilt her life, and now she was ready to explore the world of possibilities that lay ahead. With the love of her daughter, the support of Arthur, and her art as both her refuge and her voice, Sophia Andrade knew that what mattered most, above all, was living her truth and continuing to create. The sound of Grace's laughter filled the room, and Sophia, with a heart warmed and a soul renewed, realized that she had finally found her place in the world. The journey wasn't over yet, but now she was ready to move forward, head held high, in search of more beauty, more stories, and more love. And with that, Sophia realized that of all the things she had accomplished, the greatest treasure was the freedom to be who she truly was. And we've reached the end of another story. If you enjoyed it, leave a comment telling us what you thought about it, and make sure to subscribe to the channel so that YouTube understands that you liked it and recommends more videos to you.